Well, it's about time, isn't it? Think back a few months and you might remember YouTube's very own Tamiya enthusiast and my RC friend Andy Robinson RC gifted me a YOKOMO R.O 1.0 to kindly use on the channel and to get myself up and racing in the 1/10 off-road class. Well, the time has come for me to go off-roading. Well, I say off-roading. It's an off-road car on carpet without jumps, but that doesn't matter. This is the first time that I will have used that car. I've got all the bits together that I need, and we're going to get them installed into the car, and then I'm going to take the car racing, Blackpool and the Fylde RCCC. Now, these off-road cars are completely alien to me. I will be honest, I've never driven one before, not even a basher. Look at the size of those shocks. Look at the size of the rear wheels. Everything just looks strange to me. I definitely feel more at ease looking at an on-road car, but this isn't the bog standard R.O 1.0. There's an alloy chassis upgrade there. The shocks have been upgraded. I've upgraded the wheels. That was the one thing that I was comfortable at doing, and those wheels are from discodiscs.net. You can get all sorts of colours in different ranges of wheels, so if you want to race in full colour, make sure you get over there and check those guys out. Let's get the stuff that we need into this and let's get racing. So for our little track at Staining, this may be a bit of overkill. A 10.5 turn motor by Hobbywing and an XR10 Pro ESC, but the thinking behind these purchases are that if I want to go and race somewhere else, I don't want to have to buy all this stuff over again. So I've stuck with something I know. The Hobbywing stuff is what I've got in the Mini, it's what I've got in my touring car, and there's something about it that I just really like. A little Brucey bonus was I can use the Shorty 2S pack that I use in my Mini, and for a while now I've been using these DAS Micro receivers, which are a compatible Futaba receiver, which I've actually got off Aliexpress, and I think each one of my cars has got that in. The Savox servo, and from another car I've got a transponder that we can stick in there to make sure that my very few laps that I'm going to complete do get counted. So the first job here is to get my servo installed into the front end of the car. And in the end, instead of trying to struggle and squish it in there and have the hex driver pointing at different angles, decided to take the servo out and off the horn, and let's get the posts on first before we get that receiver in there. Now let's have a look in this box of Hobbywing absolute goodness. So I'm running the XR10 Pro ESC. Now this looks an absolute beast. Look at the size of that fan on the top of that ESC there. All the usual stuff that you expect. Comes with the speed controller. We've got our wires, we've got an on-off switch. This does actually come with a capacitor as well. I don't know if that's something that's included on these speed controllers, as you need a lower turn limit, but I haven't got one on my just stock 25 and 17.5 turn ones. You get your usual instruction booklet, set of decals, and there is some heat shrink tie wraps and a lead in there. Now I don't know what it is about the Hobbywing stuff, but it just looks proper, doesn't it? So let's get into this motor then. It is a fixed timing motor, so the just stock version, a 10.5 turn limit, which sounds scarily fast to be honest. You've got a couple of sensor leads there that are included, and the soldering tabs on the top to test my skills when I attempt to solder this speed controller to the motor. So after a little game of Tetris with the electronics and figuring out where things were going to go, which was a little bit of a squeeze to get it all on that plate, but the transponder's in, the motor is soldered in, I just needed to add 2 bullet connectors onto this for the LiPo battery, and it's time to get to the club. I'm here at Blackpool in the BAFRCCC, and it's the first time that the YOKOMO's going around the track. Not really sure what I'm doing with this. It's completely different to anything on-road that I'm used to, but we're going to give it a go. Ride height, no idea. Anything to do with the speedo, no idea, but we'll have a bash and we'll see how it goes round. So I'm all signed in, I'm ready to go. I've got additive on my tyres, just a few heats before it's my turn. So the race before mine cleared, and I took the opportunity to throw the buggy down as quickly as possible and try and get some sort of laps under my belt before I started. Now Ethan, I saw that. Stop it, or else you'll be in big trouble. Anyway, the car seemed to understeer quite a lot, and one thing that I did realise, it's a completely different driving style to when you're driving four-wheel drive touring especially. I did think it would be pretty similar to the Mini, but even compared to that, I feel like I had to drive in a completely different manner. At this point, so early on, I felt like I needed to flick the car round to try and get some rotation in it. Obviously there you can see it's still massively understeering, but hey ho, let's get lined up and into the first round of qualifying. So off we go, and I managed to get through the first 3 corners, but at the end, going into the 4th, I don't manage to brake in time. I apologise if my driving standards offended anybody at that point. After a couple of minutes or so, do kind of get the hang of it, getting used to the throttle inputs, the steering inputs. I do manage to put together a couple of clean laps, but still, look at that understeer there. We're going to have to sort that out after Q1. Now, unfortunately, as the race had come to an end, I was greeted with some bad news. My transponder wasn't counting all of my laps, and I'd only recorded 13 laps, which I'm pretty sure I did more of, and after looking at the times, it did seem that some of my laps were missing. So after being out and marshalling, it was back to the pits to try and sort out this understeer, and more importantly, find a position where this transponder was gonna count my laps. So between heats, it was decided, after seeking a little bit of advice, that I should reduce the ride height a little bit more. There's no jumps, no features on this circuit, so lowering that ride height would ideally give me some more steering and get rid of that understeer issue. In terms of the transponder, well, we tried it in a new position, went out for the next round of qualifying, and unfortunately the same thing happened. This time only 5 laps counting. Back to the drawing board. Going into the 3rd round of qualifying, nothing was changed on the car this time, as it felt a little bit better, still understeering at points, but I spent the majority of the time trying to figure out where we could put this transponder. In the end, RC friend Paul from Insideline Models lent me a transponder, which hopefully would start picking up some of these laps. And finally, it did work. Did manage to clock up some laps, coming home with 22 in the third qualifying session, just one behind second place Alan Fisher and a few more behind Chris, who wrapped it up in first place. Last act of the night then is finals time. So 3 cars lined up for the final, and after the first corner, look at that, I'm in the lead. Now all I need to do is last another 3 minutes and 50 seconds and all is well and good. Chris closing in on me. You can't hear it, but he's actually making a Jaws tune while he stood next to me, and the pressure got to me and Chris is already through. And on the same lap, all the good work from that start is undone and I find myself back in third place. I'd like to say that I started to make inroads throughout the race and caught these two up, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. However, there was some help from the rest of the club trying to get me closer to them, and we ended up in a pretty much a free-for-all with, let's say, no track limits at some corners, thanks to Mr. YOKOMO bending down there in the corner. Chris getting a bit of a jump on fish there as well. As you can see, the final descended into a little bit of chaos with some Mario Kart style cut-throughs, but all was fun as usual at Blackpool and the Fylde. Great racing there between Chris, Fish, myself and Paul in the earlier qualifying rounds. This is something that I want to continue to do with the off-road buggy. Hopefully we'll start to get the car dialed in. I want to visit some tracks that have some jumps. Give me a comment down below in the comments and tell me where I can come and race this. Once again, thank you to Andy for kicking this journey off with the gift of the car. But if you want to see some more race vlogs, check out this video when me and Hixie went to Crewe for the Mini Masters series. I'll see you over there.